Imagine a space for South Asian women where stories are not just told, but actually felt. This is Rue, Rising Over Obstacles and Healing, brought to you by Jyoti and Monica, two friends who set out to carve a little space and make a difference by sharing stories and fostering healing and strength within our community. We invite you to listen and reflect, finding your own path one story at a time. And just for sticking around, there's a golden biscuit at the end of each episode. Hi, so today I'm going to share a story that I feel may resonate with a lot of South Asian women. It has to do with my skin color. As you know, Monica, I was born in India, and I was about 10 years old when I came from India to the U.S. And for as long as I can remember, my skin color was always not necessarily an issue, but I was definitely aware of the fact that I was a little darker than my mom and my sister and maybe all the other women in my family. And, I was called out for it. And it didn't really seem like a big deal, but I have a memory from when I was maybe about 7 years old, I would say. A relative of mine visited from Canada, and she came and she saw my sister and I for the first time. And she was just enamored with my sister. It was, she was lighter. She was a little chubbier. I was on the skinnier side, and I was obviously darker. And so, I don't know if it was just that. I don't know if it was maybe she was younger. Mm-hmm. She was 5 at the time and I was 7. So it could just be that, she was younger. But from what I remember, my relative made a huge fuss about her being fair-skinned and, wanted to take a lot of pictures. And now this is going back in the day when we didn't have digital cameras. So it was a film that you would have in your camera and you would take the pictures. The rolls came in a certain number, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was like 24 or 36, right? Yeah. Something like that.
Along those lines, right? Yeah. So it was like, so she had this roll of film that she, had put in the camera and she was taking pictures. She just kept taking a lot of pictures. I just remember she's, taking my sister out to the garden and having her sit by the flowers and, just having her make all these different poses and take these pictures. And here I am standing at the sideline and I'm just like, oh, well, I guess my turn will eventually come.
Right.
And it didn't come. And then, I asked, if I was going to be in any of the pictures. And it was just like, oh, tusi meri photo nahi khichni, And she basically said, yeah, chal khich lene hai, And it was very underwhelming. Like, okay, I'm going to take her picture. And I think there was literally just one picture left on the roll. And she was like, chal ek hagiya, let's take your picture. And so she had me sit down and I was wearing, in India, like in the summertime, you're wearing like dresses, like frocks, they call them. So I had this frock on and, my arms obviously were bare. My legs a little bit were bare. And so she had me sit cross-legged and cover my legs so that, my dark legs wouldn't show in the picture.
Oh, God.
And then she's like, oh, your arms. Well, maybe you can move your arms back. And I'm sitting there, like I'm trying to, somehow make it so that my dark legs and arms aren't going to show in the picture. And then it was like, okay, she still wasn't satisfied. It was like, let's have your sister come sit next to you. So in the entire roll of pictures, they're all of my sister and one picture of me and sitting the way that I described with my sister next to me to make the picture appealing. So that's something, that sticks with you.
Right.
So you try as you're older, to forget those things, but then this is just a vivid memory that I have that I just had never forgotten. It was always in my like mind that I'm dark.
Right.
And I need to somehow like compensate for that. And growing up, I would ask my dad, and my dad was one of the smartest men I know. I would talk to my dad and I would ask him, like, why did I have to be dark? You know, why is it that my sister is lighter? Why am I darker? And why am I looked at differently? And I remember my dad saying to me, you know, looks come and go. He was like, everything fades. And it's how you are as a person that really matters. It's your personality. And I don't know if my personality was meant to be this way or if it was, you know, what he said to me, which was that always be nice to everyone, always show respect, always, you know, things that we always tell our kids.
Yeah.
But maybe I just took them to heart because I felt like I had to compensate. And so I think I just sort of always went out of my way to always be extra nice, extra friendly, and to always compliment others because I think I was trying to make up for what I thought was lacking. You know, it's very interesting as an adult to think back to our memories and like what, you know, happened and how that somehow like impacts us.
Yeah,
you know?
because the way you're saying that, and it's just like, you know, for your father to say those things at that time while you're in India, it's very powerful.
Yeah.
Right? It's ahead of its time.
Yeah.
He could have made other comments about just, you know, your physical being and things like that. But no, he really went and told you how to be as a person.
Yeah.
But now as you're going back, you're thinking like, well, you know, and you're a great person, you are, but then you start to think, well, you know, was that the reason why sometimes maybe, you know, I've kind of been so nice and it's just, that's what's in the back and it's been.
Yeah. And it's interesting because until we sat down now and started talking about this, I actually didn't even like piece it together.
Yeah.
But I remember like, you know, feeling that way. And I remember my dad making those comments and then for me to take it to heart and really just, you know, work on that.
Yeah.
And but I mean, it's, you know, it didn't just stop in India. Like, you know, fast forward a couple of years, we're in the US and then it's the same thing, you know, kids make fun of each other or sometimes you have like sibling rivalry, right? And, you know,
if you don't pick on your sibling, who are you going to pick on, right?
Exactly. So I would definitely, you know, I'm not going to lie, I'd pick on my sister.
Yeah.
I would say something like, I guess I always thought and I was always told that I was the smarter one. So So I would just, you know, if she didn't do well in school, I would just be like, well, I guess you're not as smart as I am, you know?
Yeah.
And then she, you know, she would turn around and she'd be like, well, you know, I guess I'm not as dark as you are, you know, like, you know, it's just like it was all fun and games.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, but she would sometimes like obviously make comments about my skin color. And, you know, now as adults, it's funny because now she tells me she wishes that she had my skin tone because, you know, this topic has always come up one way or another, you know, like I wouldn't wear certain colors because, you know, I was afraid they'd make me look darker or that, you know, my skin would just look dull. And so I would just tell myself like, no, I'm just not going to wear any of these colors. Like I'm only going to wear black, you know, because black is darker than me, you know?
And were you ever told this? Because so as you're saying this reminds me so much as a kid, I used to hear my mom say this, like, oh, I can't wear these colors. These colors are too dark, not on my skin tone. And I would see her, but maybe I felt like I was young. I wouldn't say like, oh, mama, you're not dark.
Yeah.
You know, but same thing as with you.
Yeah.
According to her, with all her siblings, she was on the darker shade in comparison. So she grew up hearing all this.
Yeah.
So I want to know because...
And she's not dark.
And she's not. And neither are you. But, you know, we're all different shades, right?
We're all different shades.
But, like, was that something that was told to you when you were younger? Like, if you ever picked something out? Or is this something you kind of picked up?
You know, I don't know. Honestly, I don't remember. Yeah. I don't know if it was just something like I just, you know, realized on my own. And I just thought, okay, I'm just only going to stick to these colors.
Right.
Like I would never wear yellow. I would just be like, no, in yellow, I'm just going to look even darker, you know?
Yeah.
And now I happen to love yellow. You know? You know, so it was like always, and I get complimented when I wear yellow.
Yeah.
And it's funny because as a, you know, like a 12, 13, 14-year-old, you know, I just would never, ever wear, yellow or any of those shades, really. Creams, any of those colors, it was always more like I just felt more comfortable in the, darker and mainly black.
But black is everyone's safety color, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it was mine. I mean, it's, it wasn't until I met my husband and I moved that he was like, why is your wardrobe all black? And it's like, and that's when it really dawned on me that really everything I wore just had some sort of black in it.
Yeah.
And, but now, I mean, it's different. Obviously, I embrace color.
Yeah.
Fully.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like, those things, like they leave this like impact. And, I want to say as I got older that I started to just sort of come to my own and accept my color and really just sort of, grow out of that thinking. But I really didn't. It just still kind of was always in the back of my mind. I would always hear comments, we got engaged, my husband and I, and, from what my husband tells me, he was, I guess he was listening, but my mom-in-law was sharing pictures from the engagement with one of her friends, and her friend commented, "Oh, ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਨੂੰ ਸੋਹਣੀ ਆ ਪਰ ਹਨਾ ਰੰਗ ਥੋੜਾ ਗੋਰਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਤੇ ਹੋਰ ਵੀ ਸੋਹਣੀ ਹੋਣਾ ਸੀ," and I remember him telling me, and I'm just like, really? And he was upset too because, I guess to him also skin color didn't really matter. And I think he actually preferred like a little bit of a sombre color that we call it. Right. And, so like, when you listen to all of that, it just sort of, even when you try to come out of it, you're just reminded.
Yeah.
Like,
it's hard.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I was automatically, everyone just said that I looked just like my dad because we were the same skin color.
Yeah.
Nobody really looked at the features,
Yeah, because, you've said that to me so many times. And I remember the first time I saw your dad, he had come and, and I was just like, and I obviously had met your mom too. And I was like, feature wise, you are much like your mom, right? I mean, you're definitely a bit of a mix.
Yeah.
But and then come to find out that's why. Yeah,
it was like it was always, my sister was always, she takes after her mom. And I was always the one that, everyone just said, oh, she's just like her dad. And I think like really, that's our society. Yeah. We look at the color and we just go, oh, that's it. Yeah. Gori, chittiya, sonia, you know? Yeah. And, it's sad because you want these barriers to be broken. Right. We are all meant to be different. We're all made differently. We all have different skin tones, and no one skin tone is nicer or better than the other, And really, like, as much as we try to overcome it, it's like the society that makes these comments, that says things that you just, you hear it and then you start to believe it. Right. And for me, it, that aha moment came when, and this just happened. I'd like to say that, okay, as I got educated, I went to school here and all of this. And I, a lot of my friends were they weren't Indian. They were from other cultures and whatnot, where they didn't have this whole thing about the skin color, So you would think that would have had like a, impact on how I felt. Yeah. But it really didn't. And like the aha moment came when I was talking to my kids. We had just gone to the Gurdwara, and my older son noticed a license plate that said Gabru. And he asked, he was like, well, what does Gabru mean? So, I told him Gabru is just it's a Punjabi word, and generally it means like a nice, like a young, handsome boy. Yeah. So automatically then they were like, well, what's the word for a girl? And I said, mutiyar, and so my son goes, well, Mama, you're a mutiyar. And I was like, oh, well, thank you. He goes, yeah, you're really pretty. But Mama, if you were like 2-3 shades lighter, you would be even prettier. And I turned around and I'm just like, well, where is he getting this from?
Right. Yeah.
Right. Like for him to say that.
Yeah.
And so, I come home and I ask my husband immediately. I'm like, so have you been saying something?
The source of this.
Yeah. I'm like, well, did you make some sort of comment? Or how can he even think this way? And then he goes, I've never had a problem with your skin color. He's like, it's probably you. And I'm just like, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, sometimes when you look at yourself in the mirror and you just make a comment, it's harmless to you because you're making it.
Yeah.
But your kids are hearing this.
Yeah.
And they're listening, they're paying attention. And then I'm just like, yeah, that's true. Like I thought I had by now accepted my skin color, but I really fully hadn't because I guess I would make comments like, oh, I look a little darker in this or, oh, any comment having to do with my skin color. And that's when I realized, oh, no. This has to stop. Yeah. I have to talk to my kids and I have to explain to them like why people, especially Indian people, like why we think the lighter skin tone is a better skin tone or why we consider it to be prettier. And it wasn't until I was explaining it to him that I was also listening. Those words were also registering in my mind. Yeah. And it was, I explained to him how India had been colonized by the British for a very long time. Yeah. And the British were very fair in skin tone. And, they had all the power.
Right.
They had the money. They had the power. And it's only natural for humans to want that. Yeah. To want that power.
Right. You associate it with that and...
Exactly. And then at some point you start to, you find one, they were foreign and two, they had the money, they had the power. Yeah. So you aspire to kind of be like them.
Right.
So I think, I mean, I could be wrong, but to me, that's how I explained it to my son is that, that's when this color started being coveted by like, the Indian people in India, like wanting to be lighter, to be fairer, and seeing it as a sign of beauty. But it really is not. No. It just, first of all, let's just say beauty is on the inside. Yeah. I still firmly believe that because I do feel that, however you may be, it's your inner beauty that always shines through.
Oh, definitely.
And you can find an average looking person, but once they speak to you and they connect with you in a way that, is special, you just automatically tend to think of that person as a beautiful person, and that's really how it should be. Yep. But, even if it's not the case, even if you're just only looking at the, your outward appearance, color really that's when it became coveted and that's when we started to, associate it with beauty. And, it's really not a fair assessment, I feel,
And when you said that to him, what did he say?
I think he understood. He was like, oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I understand. I can see it. And then as he saw it, I saw it. Yeah. And
that's the most important part, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing, right? Like, I feel like since we first met, I would hear you say those comments. And I remember I would be like, but why is she saying that? Yeah. One of my first memories of hearing you say it was we had gone to the Poconos. Okay. And here I was trying to tan because we were canoeing. And it was you and our other friend. Yeah. He was also worried because he was sheltering himself from the sun. And he's like, we can't get darker. We can't get tanner. And I was just like, you're beautiful people. And even if you do, it's okay. It's summer, right? Yeah. But that's when it was really hitting me. And that, how like these words, they really shape you.
Oh,
and
these experiences. And it's deep rooted. And, and one of the most important things I've heard earlier too is like our children really observe and learn from what we say. Yeah. So like, their like positivity about their own body really comes from us. So if they hear us saying, well, I shouldn't eat this or I don't look good in this or, X, Y, Z,
they're going to feel the same way too, because, you know, as much as they may argue with us or things like that, they really do truly look up to us.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, you know, it wasn't, like I said, like, you know, I felt like as a mom, it's my responsibility to teach him and to tell him. But then, you know, it's funny how things work, because as I mentioned it, like, I'm so happy to say that, like, you know, it synced in for me as well. And now, like, I honestly don't care, you know, like, I just think, okay, yes, I'm a little darker, but you know what? So what? Yeah. You know, bring on the sun.
Exactly. Listen, there are people out there that go on tanning beds to be, you know, the skin tone they hope they were, and they aren't. So, you know, Yeah.
And I think that, you know, at some point we have to just stop listening to what others say and just truly accept ourselves as we are, as God meant for us to be.
Yes.
Just fully come into that acceptance and then just the heck with everybody else.
Yeah. And maybe just, you know, I think it starts with like, stop, you know, positive comments are great too, but still like not always commenting on someone's physical characters.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe,
you
know, kind of appreciating more on the person that they are and the things that they do, their actions that really make them and, you know, are great about them.
And understanding that, you know, we may make a flippant comment, but it could have an effect on the other person.
Of course.
You know, and it's something that could just, you know, I'm sure my relative who came to India all those years ago probably doesn't even remember the trip.
Yeah.
Probably doesn't even remember the details. You know, it's probably just so like minor. But for me, it wasn't minor. And for me, like it, you know, many years after this had happened, I had mentioned it to my dad. And I remember my dad getting upset at this relative of ours and, you know, like wanting to know why. And I honestly, I don't think that it was meant to be harmful.
Right.
You know, I don't think that this relative was coming from like a, you know, like a malignant, like place, you know. I think it's just the way things were, you know. And, you know, one other thing that I've noticed, and I said this to someone recently, you know, what I had said was, if we accept our own flaws, fully accept them and are confident, nobody has the audacity to say anything to you about it.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If I exude, like, I love my skin color, I don't think anybody would make a comment in a negative way about my skin color. Yeah. So I think a lot of times, like, people knowingly or unknowingly pick up on your insecurities.
Oh, yeah.
And then some people want to lift you up and some people want to put you down. Right. So some people, they find out what your insecurities are and they're going to want to, you know, get you out of that and talk to you positively. And, you know, and then there are others that are like, oh, well, this is what this person's insecure about. Well, let me just, you know.
Yeah. You do that as a kid, right? I remember, you know, it was growing up, my brother, my cousin and I, for my brother, he was always on the shorter side. You know, he did have that growth spurt, but we always used to make fun of him for being short. So he was called midget. My cousin had really large ears for his age at the time, you know, so we used to call him elephant with big earlobes. And the thing that for me was daddy long legs, because I was the tallest in my class always, even if there was a grade above me. So growing up, we were split classes, first and second. So even if I was in first, I was always put in the back because I was the tallest. So that I was made fun of that. So, but those things stick with you, right? Yeah. Like as kids, I remember my cousin would just whisper, giraffe. And it would just irk me. Yeah. Right. But like, you're right. If I, at the moment, you're a kid, obviously, but if I didn't let it, you know, no one's going to have a weapon against you to use.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say the message really is, you know, accept who you are, accept your imperfections, your perfections, whatever they may be, and just be confident. Yes. And, you know, just know in the knowledge that, not to get too religious or anything, that this is how God made you. Yeah. God wanted you to look exactly the way you look. Yeah. I mean, obviously, you know, pay attention to your health, you know?
Yeah, but your uniqueness is you, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like in this whole universe, there's just that one you.
There's just the one you. And when we sit and actually think about it, ponder upon it, that there are billions of people, and there's just one you. And that just alone makes you unique.
Yeah.
So, embrace yourself, embrace your outward appearance. And, if you need to work on your inner, personality, work on it. I think we can all always improve, but, I think that it's important to really own ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And just be mindful of, when we are making comments, even if it's just about ourselves, right? I feel like most of the time I know we're always critiquing ourselves as opposed to others, but people are hearing. And then sometimes they may take that in a negative way upon themselves, children or even grownups. If I heard someone say something, it's like, wait, I never thought about that. I have that as well. Maybe it's not good, so.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think, I'm so thankful that I had the moment when my son asked, Gabru.
And I'm happy for you because we always say, behind your back too, even in front of you, like just so gorgeous, of course, personality wise, but even outwards, you're our classic beauty.
Oh gosh.
And
thanks. You're making me blush.
So for you to really fully embrace it.
Yes. Yeah. Like finally, I think, I went to Sephora the other day. And I was looking at, like foundations. Yeah. And I think for the first time in my life, I did not look for a color lighter than me. I think for the first time, I was like, no, I'm going to go with the color that matches my skin the best and isn't a shade or two lighter. So, yay.
Yay. True match.
Yeah. Exactly. So a message to everyone out there listening, if you are a little bit darker or lighter or whatever skin color you are, embrace it, love it, and just be happy.
Yeah.
That's it. Thank you for listening to Rue. We appreciate you joining us as we cultivate a community of strong, empowered women, one story at a time. If you or someone you know has a story you'd like to share, please contact us at rudaraz@gmail.com. That's ROOHDARAAZ@gmail.com. Also, do us a favor and please share this podcast with your sisters, your mom, your friends, aunties, your eyebrow lady, like any lady you know. You get the idea. Till next time, Kush raho, be well.